the country, and that they're not getting the benefit from it. They see elephants as a new school, some kind of resource, as some kind of bankable commodity. This is the language of Western capitalism. This is the language that decimated their cultures, traditions, and peoples. So I would suggest, let's not talk about elephants as resources. Let's talk about them as sacred, as forces of spirits and these kind of things.
Yeah, so, and the really, I mean, the interesting thing, you have sort of activists, and I do shamanic healing, so I always say to people that that agriculture has taken out the sacredness of eating meat. So just like you were mentioning, I can somewhat understand it if you're really poor and you live somewhere in Africa and all you have is that goat in your garden that keeps you going for a while. And then you're absolutely right. I mean, if we would stop having the meat, then we could feed the grain directly. I mean, it would be, it is doable. It's not like some crazy thing that we take out the animals and then they all starve. There's this concept,
also, Right. This also shows another limitation of our strategy of this vegan outreach, this vegan single-issue strategy, animal rights single-issueism. That's about the only way these issues are coded in our culture is single issue. You've got to talk about class if you want to talk about animal rights, because a lot of these people, they are poaching animals, they are stripping down rainforests because they're poor. You got to give them an alternative. We will never stop the slaughter of animals until we deal with class issues and poverty issues. I mean, first of all, of course, it's capitalism that's killing billions of animals. And capitalism doesn't kill animals because they like or dislike them. They kill them because they're commodities. You have to challenge the whole commodity profit-based system to stop this Holocaust. And if you're looking at poor people and you're asking them to stop killing animals and stop poaching, you better start talking about class at the same time.
I mean, and even if you have people that say, I don't really care about animals, but I care about people, you could use the same argument and say, look, look at how chocolate is made, look at how your coffee is made, and how many children are used for this still to this day. So if people use it and say, well, don't talk to me about animals, you could still use the same argument. For the use of people. The problem apparently, obviously, is because it's a global issue. The whole class thing is a global thing, because apparently, I mean, like you said, often people in their own country are not the beneficiaries of what mainly sort of the West consumes.
Well, their countries are being strip mined for resources for the West, and when they grow crops, they grow cash crops. So you have the phenomenon like 1970s of Ethiopia, which was producing plenty of food and mass starvation. Its food was being shifted. Its crops were being used to grow coffee and cotton and these kind of tobacco, up for European nations. So all these issues are interconnected: poverty and class and speciesism and hunger. So I think this issue, this argument, don't talk to me about animals, let's talk about people. Now, I certainly heard this in South Africa, and I debated also a whole panel full of activists, like anti-privatization activists, at the same forum. And I said, this reminds me of the old Marxist argument I used to hear all the time, and it's been historically discredited. Don't talk about gender. Don't talk about race until we get the class issue settled. Well, guess what? The class issue, when people thought that was settled, they never talked about these things anyway. You just went into a bureaucratic socialist society. It wasn't worth anything. And you can't get to a class society without talking about gender and race. You can't get to a anti-speciesist society without talking about poverty and capitalism. And you can't get to a human rights society without talking about animal rights, too. So these things, of course, are all interconnected, but it's this zero-sum mentality. People not clear what that word means. A zero-sum game is when one value, say humans can only rise if another value is harmed. One party benefits if another party is harmed. So we think, well, we can only rise and we can only progress in our societies if we use animals, or we can only pay attention to animal issues when our issues are settled. That's a zero-sum game. We have to realize that there are very few zero-sum games in this world. Everything is interconnected. So when one area of the universe gets harmed, another area similarly is getting harmed too.
And the other thing, I mean, that's where I sometimes lose people when I use sort of the idea of the web of life and that everything in it has value. For instance, it always tips me off when I see all these people with their slug killers and they talk to me about vermin in their garden.
Yeah.
And they impress their neighbors by having the tidiest lawn there, and while we sort of leave areas for wildlife to attract them, So, but the other problem is even today when I came here on the bus, there's a big poster that says close the gender gap. So there's still people, women saying, my work is as valuable as yours and it's not paid the same. So, and this is all happening in the 21st century. And knowing that everything for animals takes so much longer because people, by and large, just do not see them as valuable as our own kind. I think it is really about time to say negotiations is over. I think the problem is that people automatically, when you say such a thing, negotiation is over, think that tomorrow, me and my German friends take over the country again, or so, whatever,
Yeah, again, to repeat that point, as long as we're negotiating, we're not really acting, and this is what they want. This is, the legal strategies in the environmental movement. For instance, in the 1970s, and this was really big here, that so-called decade of the environment. A lot of things were negotiated, and a lot of changes were made legally, and there was a lot of bureaucratization and legal struggle. And in a way, this completely benefited the system because it took the power from the people in the streets. It took the power and put it into the lawyers, into the bureaucrats, into the large environmental corporations that were hiring MBAs instead of activists. And it kept it all in very safe, controllable, co-optable channels. So as long as we're negotiating, we're pretty much where they want us to be. As long as we're open and accountable and talking their language and wearing suits and ties and going through the legal system. There's a great quote by one of the Earth First activists. He said, we did everything they asked for. We got the charts, we got the graphs, we surveyed the land, we went through the courts, we paid them our respects, and we got screwed anyway. And this is how they win, because they delay, they defer. Now, under normal conditions, it is problematic enough, right? But I want to insist every day of my life to everyone who's listening that we are not in normal conditions. The scientists have for decades been warning us, a warning to humanity, that we are running out of time. It's unfortunate that there's still skepticism about climate change and this paradigm shift in the planet right now. In fact, in the U.S., over 50% of the people don't believe this. But we are in the world's sixth great extinction crisis right now. The last one was 65 million years ago. We are now in an utterly new situation with climate change. And make no doubt, the seas are rising, the ice caps are melting, and the forests are shrinking, and the deserts are advancing, and things are changing decisively before our eyes. And yet, we're all too willing to negotiate and be comfortable and just wait patiently. Well, we just don't have time to wait patiently. And why we haven't stepped up our tactics, why we are not walking around every day as if we're on fire, all of us, I don't know.
I think,
but
there's
way too much complacency in the activist community.
Yeah, but it's also like, oh yeah, absolutely. But also like there's this massive conditioning to things that, people watch the movie, for instance, The Day After Tomorrow. And a few people say, oh my God, this could be happening tomorrow. But 90% say, what a great movie. This movie kicked ass.
One thing about that movie that was useful is it shows something that is true. The scientists say when climate change happens, it's going to develop exponentially, and it's going to happen very quickly. Maybe not overnight, but very quickly. I say within a decade from now, there will be some seriously irreversible changes.
And what I also liked about the movie is that, you know, no offense to the politicians, but I think they were portrayed quite well when the guy says, you know, our economy is as fragile as the planet, this kind of shite, you know. So that's there was a lot of, even though it's Hollywood, there was a lot of things there that were really based on what's happening. So, you know, having